Kruger.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to serve under you, Madam Chair. And I pay tribute to the honourable member who just spoke, who had powerful testimony about the enormous opportunities and barriers that we face in this space, but particularly to the honourable member for Battersea. And I think the work that she has done on this topic in her time in Parliament is a real tribute to her, and she serves her constituents and this community very well. I also was struck by the honourable member's very interesting speech about the opportunities of AI, and I opened my eyes to the huge barriers that blind and partially sighted people have suffered, and how technology is helping to overcome those barriers. And I pay tribute to his wife. Learning to ski with partial sight is a tremendous achievement, so all credit to her. Now, Madam Chair, I want to echo the points made by other honourable members about the absolute imperative that we have to overcome, to reduce the barriers that blind and partially sighted people have in gaining work and progression in the workplace. This is, of course, absolutely necessary in justice to those people themselves. It is entirely wrong that people are discriminated against, directly or indirectly, because of that disability. And in justice to them, we have a moral imperative to work here. We also need, as the Honourable Lady stressed, to reduce barriers to employment for blind and partially sighted people for the sake of the economy itself. There is an enormous wealth of talent that the country is being denied when we exclude blind and partially sighted people from employment and from progression in work. And finally, it is necessary for the sake of the taxpayer and the public finances that we address the remaining barriers to employment and work progression among blind and partially sighted people. The disability benefits bill that we face as a country is simply unsustainable. It's been rising sharply in recent years and is projected to rise to unsustainable levels over the course of this Parliament. A 56% rise in health and disability benefits, which will cost us an additional £27 billion on current trajectories over the course of this Parliament if change doesn't happen. Overall, incapacity and disability benefits are going to rise from 2.4% of GDP to 3% of GDP over the course of this Parliament. That is money, much of that money. It would be so much better to be spending in other spaces, because we can ensure that those people who are currently excluded from the workforce are able to gain employment and to reduce dependence on benefits. So I very much support what the government aims to do in this space, and their plan to get activity levels back to the pre-pandemic levels is one very noble aspiration which my party will absolutely support. So there are two ways to approach this question, Madam Chair, which have been touched on in the debate so far. And the first is the role of government itself, to get the law, to get the benefit system right, to get the incentives right in the fiscal, legal and welfare space. And I'm proud to say that my party led the way in ensuring that we, as a country, tackle discrimination against people with disabilities. And the 1995 Disability Discrimination Act that William Hague introduced to Parliament remains the great landmark in this space, requiring reasonable adjustments for employers, requiring them to make reasonable adjustments to facilitate the employment of disabled people. Absolutely vital step that was taken back then. Also introduced the access to work grants, which have been discussed in the debate today. And I'm proud to say, I'm pleased to read that last year we saw the highest number of access to work grant applications awarded since for over 15 years, 68,000 last year, 3,000 I understand were for blind and partially sighted people. So that is encouraging. Nevertheless, we clearly need to go further with access to work, as we've heard in the debate today. And just to mention a couple of innovations that were introduced towards the end of the last Parliament, the health adjustment passports, which are aimed to reduce the time that it takes people to gain to apply for and to receive an access to work award, because it means that people can take the statement of their disabilities and the necessary adjustments from one employer to another. It's a very helpful and practical innovation that has been introduced and I understand is now in force. And the last government was also introducing an enhanced package for the access to work scheme, which enabled both employees to receive more support than they were getting under the previous scheme, under the existing scheme, but also to ensure that employers received support if they were helping to facilitate access to work. But clearly, the process remains onerous and complex in a way that it shouldn't, and this is a condition that applies, I'm afraid to say, across our benefit system. A very complex, difficult application process. It only very recently went online. I understand it's only just become possible to apply for access to work digitally. So for all people. So I think clearly improvements need to be made, and I'm very concerned about the extent of the backlog in the application process, which clearly began in the last Parliament and is continuing now. So in September 2023, 22,000 applications remained outstanding. In May 2024, 37,000, and now, or in October 2024, it's 56,000. So there's clearly very significant problems in the process of processing these applications, and I'd be interested in the Minister's views on why that is and what can be done to reduce that backlog. We also need to ensure that the conditionality and the incentives in the benefit system and in employment support are robust and sensitive. And I'm very much looking forward to the white paper that is forthcoming to see how that will be achieved. I recognise that the Honourable Lady is recommending a review of the Equalities Act, and I would welcome contributions there. It would be very interesting to see what is suggested in terms of improving that legislation. But, Madam Chair, I am concerned about proposals that rely on tightening laws, on as it were, strengthening the stick side of this arrangement. Because, as the Honourable Lady herself said, there have been a lot of laws and a lot of programmes have been introduced to support blind and partially sighted people, people with disabilities, into employment, and yet we still have significant problems in helping those people to access work and to progress in work. And it just strikes me that rules will only take us so far. And actually, it struck me as the Honourable Gentleman was talking about the role of technology. The technology will only take us so far as well. And I think there is a danger that we look to, as it were, technical solutions, whether that's in the law or in technology itself, that really let us off the hook for what really needs to be done. And I would gently point out that there is the phenomenon of crowding out. There is the danger whereby statutory action can diminish the voluntary action that needs to be taken by people, in this case by employers, to do the right thing. And this is the second approach that is so crucial to this space, and I'm very pleased that this was the focus of the Honourable Lady's report and of the debate today. Really, we need to be looking at the attitudes and culture of employers more than the obligations and the systemic responses that government can make. Of course, government significantly influences the attitude of employers. But the fact is, and I quote from the Royal National Institute for Blind People, there are no hard and fast rules in terms of supporting disabled people at work. And we should avoid, I quote, we should avoid making assumptions about what blind and partially sighted people can do. And that's why, ultimately, what we need is a flexible approach in which employers themselves use their imagination and intelligence in consultation with employees to develop the right access for blind and partially sighted people in the workplace. And the way to do that is, of course, to stress the opportunity, the benefits that employers will reap, and frankly, how easy it is. I was very struck by the Honourable Lady's story of what good looks like in the workplace. It simply sounds like human beings being human towards each other, being genuinely inclusive, to ensuring that people help their colleagues to literally navigate the workplace. And one can imagine the enormous benefit to that workplace, to all employees, when you have a culture of inclusivity and generosity, like the Honourable Lady described in that story. And so the key, Madam Chair, is clearly awareness. Much of the changes that are needed to make workplaces accessible are not difficult. They just need to be done deliberately and as part of the policy of the government. And that's why I very much welcome the practical recommendations that the Honourable Lady's report made, and I look forward to seeing what the white paper will do to implement them. By the way, I want to say how much firstly, I respect the Honourable Member, the Minister, and his colleagues, who I know are absolutely genuinely dedicated to improving employment and employability. I'm pleased to see what's been trailed for the white paper, the focus on skills, focus on devolution and on empowering local communities, and indeed the focus on ensuring opportunities for young people. My concern is, and I very much hope that the White Paper will work with employers in the spirit of this report that we're debating today, rather than against them. I am concerned by the policies that have been announced by this government so far with respect to employers. There's thousands of pounds taxation on every job through the National Insurance rise, and new burdens on employers being created with the Employment Rights Bill. These are not good portents for an employer-friendly focus. Nevertheless, in this space, I think we are in agreement about the direction of travel that needs to be taken, and I very much hope that my party will be able to work with the government to ensure that we progress the very helpful recommendations the Honourable Lady has made. Thank you.